Hello again, Jody at iCrave Optics, owner and proprietor of all things in the optical world here in downtown Watertown and hopefully around the world. Tonight we're going to discuss 2020. No, not the year 2020, the visual acuity of 2020. It just so happens to be that this year, 2020, is the year to see 2020. So, what is 2020 vision? Well, it's a simple explanation. It's considered normal vision, quote unquote normal vision, measured by a chart. A popular chart we use today is called the Snellen chart. That chart is probably one of the more popular ones. There are others. There's a tumbling E chart, which is good for people who have a hard time identifying letters. There's a shape chart. We'll show you these in a moment. For children who can't identify letters. There's also a variety of different things that we can use to help people with poor communication, or maybe they can't identify letters or numbers. We have ways around it. So, that Snellen chart, the original one, was designed in 1862 by a gentleman, the name of Herman Snellen. Thus the name Snellen chart. Yes, I said 1862. That's nearly 160 years ago. So, it's a good chart. It works well. We've used it for a long time, and yes, we have alternates today, but the Snellen chart's still the standby. The idea of 20/20 vision is essentially an object at 20 feet is identified clearly at a set angle of light and a set spatial separation between objects. So if you see a series of images on a 20/20 eye chart, you'll see a series of letters or shapes, and you'll identify those at the 20/20. It's basically a measurement of 20 feet of distance, as I mentioned, with a set distance apart. And you can see those clearly. Now, you may wonder, well, I've been told I have 20/40 or 20/60, or I can see better than 20/20 at 20/15. And all those things are very true. You may see better, you may see worse. What that means is the difference from 20 feet. So let's say you're 20/40. That's not very bad. In fact, you can drive in the state of New York if you're seeing 20/40. So what that means is someone who could see something clearly who has normal vision or 20/20 vision could see something clearly at 40 feet. That person with 20/40 vision would need 20 feet to see it. They would need to get within 20 feet. So they'd need to get closer to the object to see it clearly. Pretty simple explanation. Now the same thing applies to someone who says they could see better than 20/20. If they see 20/10, let's say, that means that person can see at 20 feet what a person with normal or 20/20 vision could see at 10 feet. So it's just a use of the number or use of the measurement of 20 feet. In Europe, if you're traveling or you're listening to me from across the country, across the big pond, in other parts of the world they use the numbers 6'6" because they use the metric system, and 6 meters is as close as possible to 20 feet. So, simple explanation of how the 20/20 vision has come to be. So let's go to the exam room, and we're going to take a look at the chart and the device that the doctor uses to measure your 20/20 vision. So here in the exam room, we have the wall chart. Those top letters are the measurement of 20/200. And we'll just keep, this is an example of what you would need to see. Try to hold that clear. There we go. And we'll just move down the chart. Those letters, the bottom row, the CREPS, is 20/50. There we go. And we'll keep moving down. 20/40 at the bottom, 2030 at the bottom, and 2020 at the bottom. That means you can see those numbers. Now those are very small in my camera. They won't really look that small in the exam room, but that gives you an idea of how the chart works. I was mentioning about the different charts. So let's go to one that's used often. This is called the tumbling E. And what that means is now that person could hold their fingers up or say that the E is pointing up on the first row, pointing to the right, pointing to the left, pointing down, as opposed to being able to say if it's an E or an A or an I, a U, a V, whatever the letters may be. That way they can use that chart. And that's an example of a test, a different test that's used. We also have, we also have shapes for children. So I'm going to go back to that menu. You can see that if we go to a child's test. And then we can use objects. We can see that there. Different types of shapes, different things that are used in the exam room. The doctor will measure you with this device. This is called a phoropter. And that device is a device that's been used for many, many years. I want to show you something very particular about this device. You can see here's the different lenses that the doctor can choose from, the different angles. So you see how that turns, different lenses, different prisms, different angles. There's something I want to show you about this device. And we'll talk about this in a minute. See how this is very straight? We're going to go above. See how this is also very flat across the face when it's used. So you see how that separates there. Okay, this is a quick example of what you would be used, what you would see with in an exam room. So you may ask, why am I, the optician, discussing 20/20 vision? It's the doctor's job to find your 20/20 vision, and that it is. However, it's my job to take that prescription that he finds to create 20/20 or better or slightly worse, depending on what you're capable of. Some people aren't capable of a sharp 20/20. There's a variety of medical reasons for that. We'll discuss that another time. But it's my job as the optician to take that prescription, that series of numbers, and create 20/20 vision. To take what he finds in the exam room at that set distance of 20 feet and recreate it into a pair of glasses that gets you perfect vision. Now, what happens sometimes, and you feel like you don't see 20/20 vision, or you don't see clearly or as clearly as you thought you saw in the exam room? Well, there's a number of things. Obviously, the glasses could have been made wrong. That's an obvious reason. Or the glasses could have inferior materials. I'm going to show you a chart. This is called the Abbey value chart of a variety of different materials. That represents all the different materials that we as opticians in the optical industry have access to. Now, the glasses I'm wearing today are one of my favorites for visual acuity, one of my more fun frames I like. It's made of glass. It's perfectly the highest Abbey value score on the chart. The material that the doctor uses for you is also glass. Some of the best optical materials in the world use glass. The best cameras in the world use glass lenses. There's a reason for that. It's really good stuff. Now, not everybody can wear glass. It's a little heavier, so forth and so on. So what do we use? Well, we use lighter materials like CR39 that was in the chart, Trivex that was in the chart, high index materials that create thinner, lighter lenses for those of higher prescriptions. Now, as you change in materials, those materials are going to unfortunately reduce in clarity. Now, the other thing that we noticed, if you remember in the exam room with the phoropter, That phoropter is perfectly straight in front of your face. It's perfectly flat across your face when the doctor is measuring you. Those lenses are positioned precisely at a set distance away from your eye to give the best corrected vision. Now, what happens when we put on a pair of glasses? Well, like me, I have a variety of different pairs. Some of us have sunglasses, some of us have clear lenses, and all of our frames do this. They tilt, they curve, and they set at different distances away from our eye than the device that the doctor used to measure our visual acuity. So, are we hopelessly forever not going to get clear vision out of glasses as we do in the phoropter? No. There are things we can do. We can assure, one, that we don't use inferior materials like I discussed in the chart about polycarbonate as one of the worst materials on the planet for optical clarity. It is the lowest on the Abbey chart, and no matter what you do to it, it is always going to be a bottom level of clarity. It has distortion built into it. It's not going to be clear. The other thing we have to deal with is how that lens is positioned in front of your eye. Did the technician, the optician, the person selling you those glasses, did they measure precisely? Now at iCrave, I also offer what are called, some stores will call them HD lenses, high definition. I call them custom. They're custom iCrave lenses. They are digitally created. Their entire surface on the back of the lens is custom made to create the best, clearest surface. Now, not everybody needs these because most people can see clearly with the right material being used, as long as the lens is positioned and measured properly in front of your eye. Both the distance of your eyes, the pupillary distance, and the height of the lens in front of your eye. That's called the pupil height, or ocular center height, as we also refer to it. But the reality is the precise measurements are important to create the best results for clear vision. Now, like we discussed, if you're looking through an inferior product, you're not going to get clear vision. Then, if that inferior product isn't measured correctly for vertical distance, for horizontal as well as vertical, that's also not going to create clear vision. And a skilled optician will measure precisely. If they don't, you need to find another optician, another office, optical store, wherever you go to get your glasses, they should measure correctly. And it's not just a simple dot in front of the eye. There are a number of measurements. At my store, when I create a custom lens, we do position of wear. And that I do on all of my progressives, those who have no line style of bifocals. We get custom lenses for everyone, both for the curvature of the frame in front of the eye, the tilt of the lens, and the distance that it sits away from the eye. So we can create the best outcome for your vision. Now, can you get those at every store? Can you get those with your insurance? Sometimes no. In fact, with the insurance world, you can't. We'll talk about that in another video. But can you get them at any optical store? Yes, you should be able to. However, many stores today do not do custom measurements when they sell HD or digital lenses, as they'll call them. So, without custom measurements, you don't really get a custom lens, because then you're still what we call them default measurements in the industry. People will take a set amount of distance that the eye sits from the lens. The manufacturer of that lens, or the designer, the lens physicist, will set up the set measurements and say this is where this lens performs its best. And that can be good, it can be bad. Usually if you use a default measurements and no position of wear measurements are done, you end up with default, with a not as good, definitely not perfect, clearest possible outcome for your visual acuity. Now, if you have questions about this, please post those in the question section of the video, at the bottom of the video. And if you have questions about your own vision, your own visual acuity. If you live nearby, Watertown, New York, and you want some answers, please stop in. Or again, if you don't, find a really good optical store, someone who knows their stuff. I know a lot of places around the country, so maybe you have some ideas where you live, you want some ideas of where to go. I'll do my best to help you and navigate you to those stores. There are very skilled practitioners in our industry. There are also, unfortunately, not so skilled. And that comes up in every industry, no matter what you're doing, whether it be construction to car mechanics to optical. So let's hope you find the best. If you have questions about what you have, please feel free to drop me a line in the questions bar. And until we meet again, I'm hoping next week, actually, I have plans for a interview with another client who's bought glasses from me, and one of her experiences of where she's bought glasses in the past. So I have some fun comments from her, and hopefully some fun comments from you as well. So we look forward to that. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. And until next time, I hope you continue to enjoy your perfect 2020 vision. Until then, have a good night.